Hi, so we're live. Welcome to Ask Cam and our session on equality. For those of you who've joined us on a live stream before, you will know my face. I am Rosie. I'm the Partnership and Communications Lead here at Citizens Advice Manchester. Welcome to anyone who's joining us from either across our Facebook or our Twitter streams. It's good to have you. And I'm joined today by a few members of our Equalities committee, because I felt that they were probably the best people to talk to when it comes to views on equality. So we're joined by Leanne, who is an advisor on our consumer service, Rob, who is one of our advice line team, and Lenny, who is one of our trustees and also the chair of the Equality committee. Is that, I've got that right, haven't I?
Yep, that's right.
Good stuff. So thank you all for joining us. And like the big prompt for us to host a live stream on equality at this particular moment is that obviously it is LGBTQ plus History Month. So I just kind of wanted to throw it out to you guys about what the importance of LGBTQ plus History Month means to you, and sort of, essentially, to CAM as an organisation. What are your feelings in that respect?
So with LGBT month, I think it's quite important learning the history, and one of the important things about it. So quite a lot, especially with LGBT, a lot of the laws that change, it's more recent times when things started going into motion. And it's kind of important to look back and see what happened and what people went through before ourselves and that. So I think it's quite important to bring it up for people yet.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think certainly it's a good point to sort of highlight that you wrote a fantastic blog for us, and I'm sure that we'll sort of touch on some of those points throughout this afternoon. But that if people do want to read on our website, you can go to the news section of our website about the history of like the gay village in Manchester. Really interesting stuff. So thanks for that. And as you say, really interesting to sort of see how recent that history is and how much things have changed sort of in the last sort of 30 years or so even. Lenny, how about you?
Yeah, so I think the blog that Rob wrote was great and fascinating. So I'm originally from Preston, so not far away at all. And Manchester, for those of us who live in the outskirts of Greater Manchester, was a place that, you know, many of us came to for entertainment and what have you. So learning a bit about that history of Canal Street and the gay village was really useful. I think in terms of, you know, what it means for citizens' advice as well. So one of the things that was on our intranet was a colleague shared a story about how citizens' advice responded to Section 28, which was a policy in the late 80s that prevented people talking about lesbian, gay relationships as valid relationships, really. I mean, they talked about it's promoting it as an alternative lifestyle, but really it was about, you know, acknowledging it as something that was valid. And what was really interesting about that was, I think it was great to see that citizens' advice has been at the forefront of really recognising how policy impacts on individuals, impacts on their access to information, and impacts on their ability to participate. And I think it was great just to get for us to see that in context, that throughout, you know, on many different issues, but throughout citizens' advice history, we have been responding to that, you know, our research and campaigns recognise and see how do things impact on people's lived reality, and what's our response to make sure that we're able to provide people with information and advice they need, but more importantly, to do what's right. You know what I mean? And that was one of the great things about the blog that our colleague shared, that what Citizens Advice did at the time wasn't popular, but it was the right thing to do, and actually made sure that people, both the people who used the services and our staff, felt acknowledged and validated. So I think LGBT History Month is a good place for us to take stock of that, for us to understand actually where have we been in the past, and actually what does that still mean for our future and how we want to be in the future.
Absolutely. And Leanne, did you have anything that you kind of wanted to add in respect to LGBTQ History Month?
Yeah, really, exactly what the guys said. I think it's really important to provide a space for a community to come together and to be a part of CAM, advocate and raise awareness and increase visibility. And I think it's really important that we understand specific needs and the challenges of their communities. And I think that it's been really interesting to find out our connections to the village and to a lot of the history and the protests, the movements that's all been a part of where we are today. And without that support and the services that we've had available, could we still be where we are now had we not had that?
Absolutely. I think that's, as you say, you've all made some really good points there about like why it's really sort of important to keep talking about it and to keep it sort of being sort of awareness isn't just a sort of a one-off thing. It is something that we kind of always need to be doing on a rolling basis. But this sort of month does give us an opportunity to have a bit of reflection time. So now, in terms of CAM's connection to the gay village and the gay scene in Manchester, I mean, we are based essentially right in the heart of the village, our main offices, and that's sort of, not everybody will know that, but that is sort of where our main base is. And I know that we take part in Pride every year. Obviously last year was a bit of a changed game, but we always are part of the Pride celebrations in Manchester. I believe both of you have been part of that sort of work that we've done in the last couple of years, haven't you, Leanne and Rob? So how does that sort of feel for you, and how is that sort of a good opportunity for sort of, again, Citizens Advice's connection to the community?
It's fun more than anything. It's fun. It's raising awareness of Pride and like getting involved in that, and it's also getting involved with all the other communities while you're there, especially when you do the parade. You're out there in front of the thousands of people and you're representing Citizens Advice, and this is what we do and we're here to support that and we're here for the community. And it just, and as I say, going back to it, it's the fun side of it, but also like active, like you out there. So like activism, but yeah. But,
yeah, it's been amazing to be a part of. Obviously, like you said, last year it was so difficult, and even just the lead up to Pride and the weeks coming forward, you can sort of see all of the decorations going up and all the preparations that go in, and the huge amount of work that goes into Pride Week, and it's really good to see. I did the stall a few years ago, and it was really nice just to get to know the community coming forward, especially for a lot of young generation who have maybe not had so much interaction with inclusivity to support networks. I think it can be really easy to disconnect from what you would describe as maybe like a large business or a large service that's available to you. And so to be able to do that from a sort of, here we are, you can come and talk to us about anything that you need from us is really, really important to a younger community who may not know that there is so many services available to them if they needed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we do find sort of traditionally it's maybe the older generations that tend to know Citizens Advice more and have a bit more of a connection to our service. But like you say, the younger generations maybe aren't as clued up about who we are and what we do. So yeah, that opportunity to really get out and meet people is something that we always really relish. And as you say, Rob, it's always a really good fun weekend as well to kind of like get to meet people and make sort of real connections. I think it's better than just being sort of a fuzzy sort of fuddy-duddy service behind a desk that like people might think of us as, is that actually we're sort of always quite progressive. I should just take an opportunity as well to say to anybody watching that if you do have any questions about equality or anything we're touching on this evening, do feel free to drop them into the comments box and we'll do our best to answer those for you. Now, we've touched on this probably already a little bit, but sort of possibly even wider than LGBTQ plus communities. Why do you feel like equality is such a key part of the Citizens Advice service?
Yeah, so I think it's quite important in the sense that people can come in touch with citizens advice for all sorts of different problems, whether it's, you know, things like benefits and debts, and even like, as I say, discrimination in the workplace, anything like that. It's being out there to know that people can come to us for that advice and they can come to us for that support. And we're there to be able to, so with me being on the advice line, we're there to listen, to understand and find the best solutions and outcomes for people. So quite often we'll be asking all the questions, they tell us, and it's somewhere where they can be comfortable to talk to us and speak to us on that level where we can pick up the problems and find the solutions for them with that. So there's all sorts really. So if someone, say for example, has gone through racism or discrimination or anything like that, we in turn can find them the support, whether it's something with the police, but it can tie into other things as well. So things, you know, if they're losing their jobs, if they're on benefits or falling into debt, knowing these things can stem from that as well, through like such things going back to it, you know, from who they are, and that we get that support for them, definitely. Yeah, so
yeah, absolutely. Oh, we appear to have lost Lenny. But Leanne, how about you in terms of sort of being part of the Citizens Advice Service? Why do you feel like equality is such a key part of what we do?
Yeah, as I said before, I think it's hugely important to have a safe space that communities feel that they can speak to us about anything that they have an issue with. And as Rob just said then, you know, these issues they can come to us with issues that may not necessarily be an equality issue, and until they realise actually that there is help out there, and if there is an equality issue that's present, that we're there to be able to help them. And I think it's really important that we still continue to raise awareness and visibility to say, you know, we are here and you can speak to us whenever you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just adding Lenny back into the stream. Lost you briefly, but it's good to have you back. Lenny, so just from your perspective as a trustee, why do you sort of feel that equality is such a key part of the Citizens Advice Service?
Well, I think it comes back to what I said before, really. I think, you know, equality is kind of built into the advice service. It's recognising that actually some people, you know, knowledge is power is the old kind of saying. And if people don't have knowledge of how to access certain things or the rights or what have you, then they are by default, then they're disempowered, and you know, there's an inequality that arises from that. So I think Citizen Advice has been built on a sense of equality and inclusion. And I think, again, you know, when we do, you know, the fact that we do get a whole range of different people who are coming to us to for support in different issues, then again, you know, our research and campaigns, you know, that really gives us a lot of rich and useful insight to understand the impact that policies are having on different people in different communities, because that's one of the things that we do know. What, you know, sometimes it's you know, inequality happens by mistake, really. We just not recognise what the impact of certain policy might be on certain communities or certain people. Although, as I said, you know, sometimes what we do know is that policy directly discriminates against people. And again, you know, the activism of Citizens Advice has always been to do what's right and act in that progressive way. So I think it's something that's built into the DNA of Citizens Advice, really, in terms of what's important to us, and to make sure that the work that we do is about empowering individuals and communities as a whole. And we know that can't happen while there are some people who are experiencing worse outcomes than others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're quite right. All of that stuff is really sort of quite crucial to the service. And obviously, when we think about inequality and sort of discrimination, and certainly, obviously, things that we would automatically spring to mind for people are racism and are then sort of homophobia, kind of those sorts of issues around inequality and or like direct discrimination. And obviously those are massive factors, but I think something that's been in the news in the last couple of days is the ruling around sort of, you know, landlords are no longer able to say to people, no DSS. That is now sort of just an act of discrimination in itself, that to people who are in receipt of benefits and are then potentially then struggling to find places to live, that there is now that sort of there used to be a sort of discrimination and lack of equality for people who who were there like struggling to find housing just because they were in receipt of benefits, which, you know, we're all entitled to that support. That's why it exists. And I think that, again, that's sort of where our campaigning work comes into play, to sort of tackle those issues. So we are sort of, again, those issues of equality for people. If you are struggling and you feel like that you are being treated unequally, then we'd really encourage you to get in touch with us, to ask us the questions, because we can then use all of that evidence and that sort of experience to sort of potentially move forward to change policy.
And I think that's kind of important with our role as well in the advice line. When the people phone up, we have to pick up the trends in that. So more often than not, quite often you do get a lot of calls similar to, as you said, with the benefits and landlords, you know, denying them. So it's quite important when people do phone up that these patterns are logged on, because then you can see the bigger picture that it's happening on a more wider scale. And that's so, yeah.
Absolutely. No, I think like you say, it's that kind of gathering of people's stories, and we're here to support you as people, not just as sort of numbers on a page or sort of this many issues. It's actually about like what that means to people's lives. So now, I've mentioned that you are all members of our Equalities Committee at Citizens Advice. What does it mean to you to be part of that? What is it that you feel like you're involved for? But also, what are you sort of proud of when it comes to Citizens Advice Manchester specifically? What are you sort of pleased about in terms of our approach to equality, and what that means for you as someone who either works or volunteers with us? Don't all jump at once.
I mean, I joined. But I quite like how even that equalities group, making sure that, you know, throughout even the service between all the staff together, that, you know, we provide the best service for all the clients and all the people that phone up, and also throughout all the staff as well. So making sure like everyone equally in the workplace are treated with like respect and enjoyment to make the workplace a good place to be. And when you're radiating, you know, happiness in a positive environment, that's going to go out to the community as well that are ringing up. So like simple things like a phone call, they can tell if you're approachable on the phone, being in a positive environment where everyone's being treated the best they can, it's going to radiate out to the community as well. So yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go to Leanne next.
I think that Rob's made some really amazing points, and it can be incredibly difficult sometimes to feel you can be your own self in a business, in your workplace. And so to work for someone who really respects, treats you in such a way that it's not just about respecting other people, but it's about accepting somebody and not feeling like you have to hide any part of yourself to fit in with an organisation. And I think that's sadly, it's quite rare, and it's really nice to feel embraced within Citizens Advice and to work for a company who not only values you for your skills, but who can understand and, you know, be visible and say, you know, we can do more, we want to do more, these are the things we want to raise awareness about. And again, with the Equality Committee, I think it's been such an amazing step to take. And one of the reasons why I was drawn to being a part of it is to draw people together and to showcase some really important stories like we have been doing this month through the blog, and showing, you know, loads of different information about the history and just appreciating each other.
Absolutely. I've really enjoyed some of the stuff we've been sharing internally, and I think our next step is to share some of that stuff like on our own Citizens Advice blog as well, because like I say, we shouldn't just be sharing it amongst our teams. It's really great to share that wider, because there is so much interesting history, and that is, like I say, it's real people's history, and it's a shared experience that we have with our communities. Reggie, I have seen your question, so I'm coming to you, but I'm just going to sort of round up this section by coming to Lenny to ask you about your sort of involvement in the Equalities Committee.
So I think equalities for me, being it was an important part of my growing up. Really, both my parents were involved in, I suppose, different aspects of the community. Really, trying to make sure that people's voices were heard, and being what was right and what was fair in the household, let alone what was right and fair in society, was also a big part of growing up. So it's just always been part of the work that I've done, and I think it's been one of the things that I've enjoyed being part of the Equalities Committee is the genuine passion and desire, and we've only got Rob and Leanne here, but everyone else in that Equalities Committee, has the same passion and desire as Rob and Leanne, a genuine interest to make things, to make sure that everyone does feel welcome. Again, Leanne said that sometimes it's hard to feel you can bring your whole self to work, you can be, who you are. So I think everyone's got that real passion to do that. I think we've got quite a good spread of people on the Equalities committee as well, because actually different people experience things differently. How the world feels for people who are LGBT plus, or who are an ethnic minority, who are an immigrant, that same organisation or that same community can feel different for different people. So I think it's good that we've got a good mix of people on that, so that we can start to understand not only what does it feel like for me, and for me to be able to share that experience, but to hear what it's like for other people. And I think as well, we're only really at the beginning of we've been doing lots, I think Citizens Advice Manchester have been doing lots of work for a long time around equality, but where we've got to at the minute is we're really starting to put a real structure and intent around that. And I think that's quite exciting. The staff group in particular have got real clear ideas and exciting ideas about actually what is it that we can do so that everyone does feel welcome, and so we can all learn about each other's experiences.
Absolutely, I would agree. I think, like you say, it's something that's always underpinned the service, that this feels like a real time of action and a real sort of engagement of our staff in, like, how do we sort of go further? Well, how do we take the next step? Now we've had a question from Reggie Yates, and it's a big question. So it's how does our work directly address the systematic inequality of people of colour in Manchester's experience? So obviously it's a massive issue, and unfortunately Citizens Advice alone aren't going to be able to solve it. I think probably the recognition that there is inequality sort of still very much present in society, it's sort of, and not strictly limited to Manchester, but obviously the people that we work with are all Manchester residents, and sort of not shying away from that. If there are issues of inequality, then we will look at them. As we've touched on already, I think our research and campaigns work will help to build a picture of if we are seeing particular inequality in an area, or if there are organisations, or if there are particular systems that we are getting a lot of evidence about there being problems in. I think we would certainly look at how we can work to try and drive change in those areas, and we would certainly always say that as well. We would encourage individuals to come forward to speak to us, because we can look at how we can support you in your individual case, which in itself, if that is visibly seen to be sort of challenging inequality, we would hope that sort of drives further change. That's sort of from my perspective. Is there anything that any of you guys feel that we add to that?
Exactly the same. As I say, when people coming forward is the most important thing with us, like making sure, as you say, picking up that this happens, knowing that by letting us know, and then we're there to encourage that, to bring it forward, because it's there, but more people come forward, more yeah. Absolutely.
I think to add to that, so there's two ways in which we're trying to focus on equality and inclusion, really. So we're trying to look at the staff experience, and we're also trying to look at the experience of our community's service users, people who use the service. So I think what we do know, and one of the things that we are just starting to look at as an equality committee, is the representation and progression of our staff as well. That's one of the systemic issues that we have. We know in every field of every sector, we know that whether we're talking about education, law, the voluntary sector, the NHS, we know that the people who make the decisions, so people who are senior managers or funders or what have you, people who make the decisions don't very rarely reflect the communities in which they serve. So we're having an honest look at that ourselves as well, really. What does CAM look like compared to the communities of Manchester? So that's one of the things that we are looking at in terms of how do our ethnic minorities, how is their voice not only heard in the places where we make decisions, but in terms of our management and leadership structures as well. So that's one of the things which we're really clearly trying to work on in terms of the progression and representation of our staff, and really focusing on that. You know, sometimes when organisations look at that, they look at that in what we call a deficit model, that if we've not got people who in those decision-making spaces, it's because they haven't yet learned the skills. But one of the things that I hope that we're looking at is recognising, and I think it might be some of what Reggie was talking about, that actually sometimes the fact that people aren't in those spaces is not because they don't have the skills, but because they haven't had the opportunities. So that's one of the things that we're wanting to look at, so that we can open up those opportunities for our staff groups. And again, I think Rob and Leanne and yourself, Rosie, in the work that you're doing, you're far better able to talk about how that happens for our the communities that we serve. And I think you've kind of given a good few examples of that as we build up that picture, what is the reality for certain communities, and identify what those patterns are, we can and then do share that both regionally and nationally, so that actually policymakers, because as you said, Rosie, we can't change this on our own, so that other policymakers can start, we can start to try and form coalitions to understand, well, actually, how do we make change together to improve things?
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully, Reggie, that's at least gone some way to answer.
Yeah, it was a big question, a good question, but a big question, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think one that obviously, has really risen to the surface again in the last sort of probably 6 months, and with various movements. And I think it's really important that we keep those movements going, we keep those questions being asked, because it's the only way you make change, isn't it? Is to we need to keep pushing. I think going back to sort of LGBTQ plus sort of equality, Leanne and Rob, you both shared some really interesting stuff internally about almost like the history of Manchester and the history of equality. And obviously, without sort of asking you to recap your entire posts, what for you sort of were the sort of key messages or the key things that stood out to you when you were sort of researching those posts, and what's changed and what's great?
Yeah, so it's how different times through the period of time, especially in the last 50 years, and different challenges kind of brought the community together, and different people from different parts of the community. So say, for example, in the 80s with Section 28 and such, the protests that happened in 1986, which was actually 2 days, it was on the 20th of February, 1986, they did the protest where 20,000 people, I think it was, marched together through Manchester to protest this. And it brought together not even just the LGBT community, but also, heterosexual, straight people also got involved, families got involved, everyone got involved to protest this terrible bill that was there. And other little things as well, so during the 80s, there was the AIDS and HIV epidemic, which ripped through the gay community. So little things like that, which I learned through the village. And it's simple things like the formation of the bars, where people used to go and gather and congregate. And that's where these communities were closely knit together through these periods of time, through different challenges. And then obviously more in the more recent years, where attitudes kind of changed from then. So things like TV shows that were quite important during the 90s, attitudes changing, generation changing, simple things like, I say, going back to the pandemic, more people started to come out then, more people started to stand together. And even now it kind of radiates now. So modern time in the village, people use, especially, Canal Street, the gay village, as a hub of community where people stand together. And even now, the times are changing. That the community's still there and everyone's still side by side. That you never know what's going to come in the future, but there's always going to be that community of support there, which has always kind of been there from the beginning of time to now. So yeah.
Wonderful, thanks, Rob. How about you, Leanne?
So I obviously shared a story about two women who were fairly important around Manchester in the sort of mid-late 70s. And there was a film screening a couple of years ago of a short film that's made about them called Invisible Women. And they were hugely important, and I think it's a sort of almost sort of tied in really to what we've been discussing about visibility. I think the most important thing is that for as long as the conversation is still out and still being had by different organisations, by people, by communities, the more that conversation takes place, the easier it is to make change. Because if people don't stop talking about these things, it can't go away. People can't ignore that there may still be issues that we need to face and still changes that need to be made in policies. Lucia and Angela was who I'd written about in Invisible Women, and they were incredible women. And when they started the short film or documentary about them, they couldn't find any information about their activism at all. It had been completely forgotten. They went to the library. There was nothing there. And I think it was just really sad to see that these women and the huge changes that they'd made to Manchester were just completely forgotten about. And I think it was really sad. And like I said, it's important that this conversation still happens now, because as soon as we stop having it, we will go right back to where we were, and no one wants that anymore. They were huge pioneers, and they again started up in Canal Street, working in New Union Hotel, and that's where Angela met Lucia, and sort of became this formidable force who went around Manchester and wanted to set up help. So I wrote about how they set up a women's refuge, and that was only the second, and we're talking like mid-70s at this point. It was only the second women's refuge in the whole country, which is just it's mad to think about that. There wasn't women's refuges available. They wanted to make sure that people had information, and as Lenny said earlier, communication is everything, knowledge is everything, and so to empower women in information and just dropping leaflets everywhere they could, setting up phone lines, they had nothing themselves, and they really wanted to make sure that this community felt empowered and that they had a safe space. They had people who wanted to help them, who wanted to be there, and like I said, to make sure that they know everything that's going on and make informed choices and finally feel like they can be themselves for the first time.
Absolutely. I think, like you say, it was a really fascinating read, and I think that we do have to keep those stories alive through the sort of constant retelling, I guess, is kind of so that, like you say, they don't get lost, and that essentially that all of the the history that we are making now potentially is that is that sort of doesn't get forgotten before it gets remembered again by somebody in sort of 30, 40 years time. So looking at sort of CAM and the fact that we sort of sit directly in the village, what do you think that sort of means for the community? I know we're not sort of necessarily the most visibly there, but what do you think sort of the importance is of us sort of being so closely located to the community, I guess?
I'm not too sure. I know the important being the city, so it's connectable for everyone all around to get there in that sense. I see it more on a personal level in the villages, like, you know, when I first moved to Manchester and came out, and that was kind of my place where I went to, and that's my place where my friends and my chosen family all live in that area. Well, they go there and we congregate there. So I had that connection through that with work as well. So, but I think even then, anyone that doesn't, you know, work for Citizens Advice may see that as well, through knowing that that's a location where it's at, could perhaps see that as well as that connection. That it's quite things like Sackville Garden and like the beacon of hope that they've got and things like that show that it's quite symbolic in that area, is quite a place of community and support, and it's quite a warm area where people come to for that sense. So hopefully that radiates with the Citizens Advice as well, being there. I get that myself. That's how I feel with it, being there, that I work there. So, well,
yeah. No, I think certainly sort of from my perspective, I think it is really important that we sort of align ourselves and sort of in solidarity with the community, and by being there, sort of being in a space where it is safe for people feel safe to visit us and know that they are welcome, I guess. Because very much our services, it's independent, it's impartial. No matter who you are, like whoever you are, whatever your problem, we're going to be here to help you. And it doesn't matter which community you come from, whether that's a community of sort of experience or an ethnic community. It doesn't actually matter, as long as you are always welcome within Citizens Advice's services. I think it's really important for us to kind of be aligned with that. Or that's always how I felt anyway.
Oh, sorry, Rosie, I interrupted then.
Okay.
I think I was going to say, I think it's also really just in terms of what Leanne was saying there as well. You tell stories in many different ways, and it's not always by literally telling a story. And we know that people access Citizens Advice Manchester services in many different ways, in many different places, and particularly at the minute, no one's really accessing, not many people are accessing them in a physical location. It's all online. But I think what's interesting is the fact that there is a location there, that people that do access us there, just by walking through that community, they are being told a story subconsciously and consciously, and it is telling that history. So again, as Rob said, they've passed the beacon of hope or what have you, and they may not necessarily, pick up all the details of that story, but it starts to raise questions and starts to help them recognize and understand that actually there are different communities and different people, and people express their history and culture in lots of different ways. So again, I always love it, when you're walking through Chinatown or Chinese New Year or different times of celebration, when you see people expressing their celebrations, even if I'm not part of that community, it does always feel quite exciting. So I think there's something that's quite, as I said, many people will access our services in many different places and localities, but the fact that we have a locality there, one, lets people who are in that LGBT plus community know that they are welcome. It's a very clear and evident message. And then other people who access our service in that location also just pick up bits of history as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and what I really love is we've obviously talked, Rob, you touched on sort of the changing kind of broadcasting and stuff that's been put out and sort of on TV. And obviously I think the particular reference you made was Queer as Folk, but obviously now obviously just finished It's a Sin, and I personally just really enjoyed watching all of even though they were pretending it's London, I really enjoyed looking at all the Manchester venues and sort of being that real connection to the Manchester scene that actually probably would have echoed a lot of the experiences.
Yeah. And a series like It's a Sin are really important as well. So things like people, even myself, as a young LGBT person, the horrors of what they went through, the older generation, but to actually see it in the show, shown so much more of how big it actually was and how many people, you could speak to an older gay person who's probably lost friends in that period of time, and seeing that on TV was so important. But it's also important to raise them conversations, and also important to show that since then, attitudes have changed so much since then. The stigma has ended, and also nowadays there's so much more. So there's so much more support, and HIV is not a death sentence anymore, and that so it opens that conversation. And different charities like Terence Higgins Trust and George House Trust, it kind of connects. You can research and look up that it's not all doom and gloom like it was back then, and there is that support. So it was an amazing series, and it shone so much and opened my eyes so much more to what went on in that time. So
yeah, I think it's really nice to have Citizens Advice as an ally as well, because there's a lot of businesses out there who who are allied to the community, and it makes for not that their intentions are not legitimate, but it makes for wonderful advertisement. And I think just with Citizens Advice, it's just we're here and we're an ally, and we're here to help the community, and there's nothing in it for us. We are here to offer you impartial, independent advice on anything that you need, without having to sort of use it as a marketing tool.
Absolutely. I think, like you say, we are here for all communities. We're not going to sort of align ourselves with any one particular community, because we, as you say, we're completely equal service. But yeah, I think like an opportunity to sort of say we stand with those communities, but all communities, when they need us, we will be there if we can, I guess, as and when we can. I'm really conscious that we're kind of ramping towards the end of time. These things always just go so much quicker than I expect them to. Was there anything else that any of you wanted to sort of touch on in terms of Citizens Advice and our approach to equality, and things that you sort of are just things that you enjoy, things that you're proud of, things that we are looking forward to as well? As we've sort of said, we're on sort of the start of our equality active journey, I think, in a way at CAM. So the things that you're looking forward to in that process.
I think it's just exciting seeing where it's going to go in that, and knowing that we are working and we're making, reaching these targets to get these outcomes, and I'm just excited to see where it goes. So, and I think the thing I take pride in it with, especially in the advice line, is that we are there to help people, and we encourage people to speak to us if they need help. And, we like to help people, and we like to, improve that people are in a bad place. We want to help them and put them in a better place and find them the support and get them the advice and that. So whoever you are, whatever the problem and that, we're passionate to make sure we're there to, provide that help you need. So
absolutely. Lenny, Leanne, anything you wanted to add?
I think I agree with what Rob said, really. I think for me, as a trustee, I'm really excited to see, how this, as I said, the staff group have got some really great ideas, and they understand a lot of the issues already for different groups. So I'm really excited to be able to empower that staff group to do what it needs to do, really, and enable them to work well together, to make sure that everyone can come to work and be the whole self, as Leanne said. And then also, I'm really quite excited, I guess, I suppose, just to see, thinking about this, as I said, one of our colleagues wrote a great blog about Citizens Advice response to Section 28. So I guess I'm also kind of excited in 20, 30 years' time, what people are saying about what we did then, really. So that's a quite exciting bit, that we are really creating history, whether we're talking about our work in including LGBT plus people, or that wider equality stuff, particularly at the minute, as we're understanding how COVID is impacting differently on different communities. The quote that we've got at the minute is that we might all be in the same storm, but we're in very different boats. So I guess that's the exciting bit for me, just to recognise that we are and can be creating history, and in 20 years' time, someone might be talking about the great work that we've done to advance equality and inclusion in different ways.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. No, guys. Leanne, was there anything you wanted to add, or?
No, I was honestly about to say what Lenny just said then, really, that I think there's been such an impact with COVID, and it has really affected a lot of different communities in lots of different ways. And whilst, you know, us sat here today may not be able to understand from that person's perspective, we know that we're making waves and we're trying to make sure that those communities feel heard and understood. We don't have to sit here and say, I know exactly how you feel, because I'll never be able to understand from a lot of people's point of view how their situation feels to them. It's individual. But what we can say is that actually we're here to listen and we're here to support, and we're here to sort of help in any way we can. And even if that's just to provide us with information about how you've been feeling about this, or if you've had difficult time during this, you know, really long a year, has it been now, a year of COVID? And so I think it's just really important that people understand we are here to support and listen, and make sure that people feel heard with their story.
Absolutely. I think what's really important, I think, for, as you say, with COVID, is in terms of equality, is that for a lot of people, it's brought a lot of people together, but it has, in a lot of ways, shown up quite a lot of the divisions that still exist, and that we still need to work on. And that, like you say, it's just sort of that we are here as a service to support people. If you haven't been treated equally, that we can sort of help you, try and help you to sort of work towards equality, hopefully for yourself as an individual, and hopefully to then make a difference in communities as well. Just to wrap up for the session, just a reminder to people watching that if you do need support, I've put our contact details up along the bottom there. So our advice line number, which is a free phone number, and that's our website as well, where you can sort of find all of our online sources of advice and online services, but also just any details of any of our other work. And really important to note as well that we are a hate crime reporting centre at Citizens Advice Manchester. So again, if you feel like you need to be able to talk to somebody, that, you know, hopefully we're a service that you can trust, and we can help you to guide you through that process if you are unfortunate enough to be victim of a hate crime, or if you've witnessed a hate crime and you want to sort of take action but you don't really know what to do next. Give us a call. And so that, I think, is our time. Thank you so much to all of you for being with me this evening and sort of talking through Citizens Advice's experiences. And for the rest of you who are watching, we'll no doubt be back very soon with another Facebook Live. It's never long between the two, so we'll hopefully see you very soon. Keep your eye on our socials for details of what's coming next, and do let us know if you've got any ideas about what we should be covering, what you'd like to see us covering in these live streams. Please do comment, let us know, and we'll do what we can to get the right people to speak to you. So I will leave it there. Thanks very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.